Hello everybody. Welcome to ICC's Game of the Week with your host as always, Joel Benjamin. In my youth, the Caro-Kann was considered an opening for weaker players or good players who only wanted to make draws. Few players of my generation would choose such a boring opening. But in recent years, as castling kingside for black in the main line has become the norm, we see many exciting games when white tries to storm the barricades. We can find one recent example in the Abu Dhabi Masters. The Venezuelan GM Eduardo Iturrizaga waved the proverbial red flag at the charging bull in the person of Indian grandmaster Debashis. Iturrizaga surrounded his king with defenders best as he could, while Debashis pointed all his men at the same king. Let's see who prevailed, attack or defense. Alright, let's get to it. And as advertised, it's a Caro-Kann. Knight d2 or knight c3. It generally doesn't make a difference, certainly if black captures on e4. Some people choose one or the other based on black playing a move like g6, and perhaps the knight d2 camp wants to be able to use the c-pawn to support the center. I think it doesn't really matter too much one way or the other. Just a little different if black plays a different move. But here we just go into the main line, bishop f5, which over the last several years has become much more popular than knight d7, which was the move that Karpov favored. But since Karpov is pretty much inactive these days, he's not championing that move anymore. Now in this move order, black generally wants to prevent knight e5 attacking the bishop, as is no longer defended by the h-pawn, so that's the reason why knight d7 is generally played here. And also why white waits a move before playing h5. Now, in the old days, black used to play queen c7 followed by queenside castling. It's a whole different game. Nowadays, black usually castles kingside, beginning here with bishop e7. But Iturrizaga plays something a little different, bishop d6. Now that move is certainly not unknown. It attacks the knight on g3. Well, it hits the knight on g3. It doesn't exactly attack it, but it kind of provokes it into the center, as white played. But now black's next move is uncommon. Usually black captures on e4 here, although with the bishop on d6 takes away black's usual idea of bringing the queen to d5. But black actually goes for that idea, but just first with bishop c7. So he spends an extra move with his bishop. And white plays king b1, almost always a useful move, getting the king to a little bit of safety, and also defending the a2 pawn, which sometimes comes under attack, and also a little bit of a waiting move, because if black castles, then white is ready to start firing the kingside pawns. All right, so now we see this maneuver. So now we have a normal kind of position, but the bishop is on c7 instead of e7. Black has used an extra tempo. So normally the bishop would be on e7 and it would be black's move. He could play, for instance, queen e4. So why did black invest this tempo? Well, in a lot of variations, a white knight comes to e5, and so the bishop on c7, I guess, is directed against that to keep that knight out of its natural outposting square. So white plays now c4, and sometimes white will try to avoid this move to stay in the middle game. And with the bishop on e7, I think it's maybe easier to do that with a move, let's say, like bishop e3. But here, white offers the trade.